Okay, we're live. Greetings all in the chat. I'm here with Shining Light, the one and only Shining Light, man out of time.
Peace, everyone.
We've got a few questions and a few subjects to discuss based on the last video, but I'm gonna hand it over to Shining because he's made some notes to get us started.
Yeah, it's a privilege and a pleasure to be broadcasting with you once again, brother. What's it been? Could it really have been 16 months? I think October 2023.
Yeah,
according to your channel.
It was summer. No, it wasn't summertime.
Just the end of summer.
It was the end of summer. Yeah.
So over a year ago. Yeah, it's a pity we didn't do a holiday cast as we traditionally used to do. But
yeah, do you want to know what happened there with me on the holidays?
What happened with you, brother?
Not the first time, but I sort of realised something. I didn't want to do any of it, and I've always felt like that. But it didn't actually make any sense to me. And I was surrounded by the same people saying, oh, you know, Christmas, New Year, all of that. And then I just sort of sat there and I thought, what does any of that mean? You get swept along with it. But that's what happened. That's what happened this year. On New Year, I sat there and I thought, New Year, so what? Means nothing. And it really sort of dawned on me that, that some of these celebrations we take part in. I know we do the Christmas thing because men are lonely, and a lot of men feel it because everyone's sort of with their family and friends, and you know, all that sort of stuff. But it really didn't bother me at all. Christmas and New Year.
I think we mentioned that, didn't we? I think we had a little chat whether or not we're going to do the holiday cast, but I think if your heart's not in it with these kind of things, it's not a quality product. It wouldn't have been a broadcast that your deserving target audience would have been used to. But we're here now anyway. There's lots to talk about. Well, I'm sure the people that are used to your content would have been very happy with your last video. You did talk about solutions, something we love to address. And for the benefit of our first-time listeners, rather than make them listen to, I was thinking about this the other day. It's been over 10 years now. Over 10 years we've been doing discussions and podcasts on this very field, on this very platform. It'll be coming on to 13 years this year since I made my first manosphere video. So it's been a long time.
Me. I don't think a lot of people realise that Uni MGTOW, or he used to call himself Universal Studios 13. You and Uni MGTOW came in before me, and the likes of Patrick Henry. Obviously, Barbarossa and Stardust were around. But yeah.
And we all built our stuff, by the way, around man, woman, myth. Always an honourable mention. Always worth mentioning the OG of the OGs. But it's been a long time. And I was just thinking in general, what's happened, what has come to pass over these 10 or so years. And really, those that weren't around in that time, I really don't know the magnitude of what went on. I mean, I don't think we did at the time, but it was just such a great environment to be in. The fact that we had such an impact on YouTube as well. The fact that the entire YouTube platform looked at us, or the light or the spotlight was on the manosphere at that time, and we were really saying things that nobody definitely on YouTube, definitely in social media in general.
You know,
Just
that
people
that
have
is
heard.
something I've been thinking about. It was the first time most of these things have been said, and there was an energy there. There was an energy, and every time someone discovered something new, it just it added fuel to the flame, and everyone became inspired. So everyone would give their take on it. Now, the problem I see now, talking about problems, is when people find this information, and I'm sure the people who came before us thought that about us, but even more so now, when people find the information now, they think they're the first ones to say it, and they begin to preach to the choir. And one of the major problems we've got now is people trying to erase their predecessors and try to
And you just can't do that, folks. You can't
you
change history because that's falsifying information, and you can't
exactly
well, to put it in context, which is something that I said I was going to do. What do we mean when we say we're discovering solutions? And it's good that you also mentioned stagnation, because to understand something, or to better understand something, it's good to have its opposite. So you mentioned solutions and stagnations. Now, when we're talking about solution stagnations, we're talking about it within the manosphere, or the masculine men, particularly within the Western sphere, because basically most of us speak English. So we're addressing the English-speaking Western male. Now, what happened in the early years was our message started reaching other countries that English was a second language. And we discovered, as more and more men added their voices to ours, that it was a problem and a situation that was happening all over the world. So the context of solutions and the manosphere is for men all over the world. And as you said in your last video, of every religion, every ethnicity, all over the world. So definitely for those that are trying to subvert the manosphere into a ethnocentric, and some of the OGs were guilty of this as well, which is something that me and you called them out for and addressed in the early years. I'm glad to see that they've dropped it now, but
yeah.
it is a message for all men. So the solutions are male masculine based. Masculine as defined in its original definition, not what masculine is supposed to be now, as influenced by the woke and the feminist culture.
Well,
Masculine as men have defined it.
one thing I think is being missed, because we're going full circle, is people aren't learning from the mistakes of the past, where the manosphere is concerned. And we've seen certain things before, and now we're seeing them come around again. And it's the same types of people. And I don't want to focus on the problem. We identify the problem, right? The problem is all this has been said before. It's nothing new. So we're going back to this. The newcomers that come in recently, within the last 5-6 years, will think this is groundbreaking. Wow, I need to tell the world. And then they come and preach to the choir, and then they go through the same stuff. I mean, the Trump thing, we saw it last time with Trump. It was suddenly we're focused on those issues, those Republican American issues. It's like, okay, fine, that's in your immediate environment, that affects you as a man. There are certain issues within what's being said and what's happening that affect you as men, but don't let that overshadow or completely dominate what is supposed to be a universal philosophy. Don't let that overshadow the talking points. We've got to stick to a universal philosophy for all men. And when you get this very vocal group that are to a degree egocentric, or solipsistic. You know, that they don't comprehend anyone outside of their racial, cultural, religious, political group, and it becomes quite jarring to listen to. It almost gets to the point where you want to filter them out so you can hear what the rest of the men are saying. So much so that the things that other men are saying that could be more insightful, they just get drowned out by this. I mean, we had it before, and it got so bad that the alt-right talking points bled into manosphere comments, threads, videos, people trying to influence what type of content you made. Or talk about homogenous societies, talk about the problems for the white man, talk about, and I always said no. When I went to those fathers meetings back in the day, and I saw those men with their 1,000-yard stares, absolutely fucking shell-shocked because they couldn't see their kids, and they'd spent tens of thousands of pounds on court cases over many years. They were from all different backgrounds. These were meetings in London, and there were men who were having to deal with The Hague. Their kids had been taken out of the country, into Europe, all over the fucking place. And I just thought, why do you want me to focus on one demographic when I've been there on the front line and I've seen who this actually affects? And it was all men, all men from all backgrounds. You know, you couldn't pinpoint one specific demographic of men that it affected, so that we cannot justify focusing on one demographic of men within a manosphere. And that those alt-right talking points, people like SFM will remember, they back in 2017, they started becoming very sinister, and a lot of the eugenics stuff started creeping in. And when it becomes about eugenics and making one race of man superior to the other with statistical fraud, flawed experiments that were done way back in the early 1900s, that things like the F scale and stuff like that, they were stamped out in the early 1900s. But to see that crap come back into the manosphere and people repeating lies that had already been debunked, you know, over 100 years ago or 100 years ago, it's like, really? Can we focus on facts? Can we have some research? Can we have someone who's actually been through the studies, looked at the p-values, or looked at the ecological validity of what's being said, and compared and contrasted it with real life, so that we can actually speak truth here, speak about facts? Because the amount of misinformation that was getting spread throughout the manosphere, in the name of eugenics, in the name of racial supremacy, in the name of all this bullshit, which took us so far away from the main focus, which should have been on men. I mean, it was just, and now every time it creeps in now, I feel like nipping it in the bud, because the further it goes, and it is problems focused. What about me? What about my race? What about my, how many victim cards do you want to hold up? We looked at this intersectionality thing, and intersectionality was a term created by a black feminist, so she could claim more victim cards than anybody else. I'm female, I'm black, I'm, whatever else, insert victim label. And you've got this Venn diagram of overlapping victim cards, which renders you completely powerless. If you want to be a sovereign man taking on the world alone, the last thing you want to do is say, oh, but everybody's picking on me, because that was never what the philosophy was about.
You bring up a good point there. Now, one of the things we talk about, just casting it back to your original point about our message being for men in general, and as I was saying at the beginning, for men particularly in the West, but as we discovered, it's a universal situation, a universal problem. The point that I wanted to expand on there was, we state in one of our ideals that our solutions are supposed to be self-centered, in that our focus is on self-betterment, in improving our situation, and all the ethnocentric stuff, as you say. A lot of the racist stuff is based upon bullshit. It's based upon false statistics. I mean, you only need to watch the Olympics. You know, when if somebody says one ethnicity or one DNA type is better than another, as we said all those years back, as I presented in multiple videos of mine, any human biologist will tell you, any human biologist worth their money will tell you that the best DNA pool is a varied one. And you only need to watch the Olympics, where the fastest, the strongest, the best physical, and you only need to watch the any mental games like the chess champions and stuff. You'll see that the best is always a variety, a varied ethnicity. We blew that stuff out of the water. But when we say that our solutions are center-based, i.e., what's good for ourselves and what's good for our own environment, first and foremost, I think a lot of these guys have decided that, well, what's best for me is if I can narrow privilege, which is what these guys are arguing. You know, they're saying I am a certain category, I'm a certain nation, I'm a certain race, so I deserve privilege. That's what they're saying, basically. They're saying, you know, I'm from such and such a race, I'm better than the other guy who's from another race. You know, these, as we've pointed out, these false and inappropriate categories of men. I think these guys have misunderstood the self-centered, self-centric solutions that we're offering. And what they've done now is they've thrown, as they say in the US, they've thrown other men under the bus to promote their own agenda, which now has become ethnocentric or has become nationalistic. So, you know, how would you respond to that? How would you say, well, you know, how respond to these guys saying, well, I'm only looking out for number one? Isn't that what you guys preach?
Well, it becomes dangerous. That's the thing. It becomes extreme. And I think I put a post up today. I can't remember if it's today or whether I've scheduled it for tomorrow. But there's a social science term, pseudo-speciation. So the definition of pseudo-speciation. Pseudo-speciation is the tendency to treat different human groups as if they were different species, based on cultural differences like language, dress, or customs. It's a form of othering that can lead to a false sense of identity and dehumanization of outgroups. So othering is when you point at them over there, the others, they're not like you. And in-groups and out-groups is when you have marked and unmarked identities. So an unmarked identity is someone who will call themselves normal. We don't need to be marked because we're the normal ones. And the marked identity would be the abnormal ones over there. And they would normally give them a name like a slur. And that's the beginning of dehumanization. And it's based on suspicion and fear. So every time you get these segregated communities or whatever, you have suspicion and fear because they don't mix with each other. They don't understand each other, and they see each other as a threat. So then the dehumanization begins, and people dehumanize the others because ultimately it makes it easier to kill them. It makes it easier for people to see them as being less than human. So you can abuse them, you can spit on them, you can do whatever. It comes from the psychologist Erik Erikson. he identified pseudo-speciation in 1966. He described it as an irrational tendency for homogenous groups, that's groups of the same kind, if you want to use the word kind, for homogenous groups to deny that humans are one species. Erickson believed that pseudo-speciation is fueled by historical or cultural experiences. He also believed that education could help to cure pseudo-speciation. That's an interesting word, cure. I've heard it said before, we don't use the word cure in psychology or social science, but reform maybe. Some say that pseudo-speciation can be manipulated by charismatic community leaders, media, and autocratic governments. Now that's interesting, because the way people rabble-rouse or gather groups is to appeal to their own biases, their own sense of identity. You know, we, us, lots of collective terms. You know, we're a brotherhood. You know, they're a threat to us. That type of language gets people to identify strongly with a charismatic leader who might wish to create an outgroup and begin to dehumanize them. And it's just it's a collectivist mindset, but it's also a very weak one. It's also a very
it's a failed one. It's something we said back then. You know, that's what the Nazis say. You know, that's what the Zionists say. You know, our race, our you know, our ethnicity is superior to the rest, and it's an ancient one. You'll find it as you know, in the Bible. You'll find it in almost every culture where this is something I remember that I won't say his name, but something I pointed out to him. He just didn't believe me, and I said every society going back thousands of years have depicted divinity in their own image. So just as, for example, in the Sistine Chapel, you'll find the painting of God being a white man with a white hair. In like over in the East, you'll find God depicted as an Oriental man. You'll find in Africa God depicted as a black man. It's been the same throughout cultures and histories. But the problem is when you start, as you say, when these guys start talking in this type of fashion, it is stagnation. It's not something they think they're bringing something new. They think it's a solution, but this was part of the problem in the first place. If you dehumanize a human being, something that you know a lot of social commentators will tell you, when you start dehumanizing a person, it means you can dehumanize anyone. If you can put the false dichotomy that a human being is not human, as you say, you can abuse them, you can torture them, you can remove all their rights, you can kill them, you can bomb them. You can do that with any human being. Once you've done it with one human being, you can do it with any. It's not a matter of raising your own race or your own nationality. It's the fact that you've done something that's incorrect. You've created a lie. You said the human being is not a human being. And once that precedence has taken place, it can now be placed on you. What's to say that now another nation isn't going to come along and say that your ethnicity is actually the and we've heard that said with these guys, with the ethnicity of these guys.
Do you remember that school study where they did an experiment with the blue eyes and the brown eyes?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And she switched it. She switched it halfway through.
It doesn't take. And I said it years ago. I says, as soon as in the US we got a American first guy. I'm not saying don't put yourself first. I'm saying once you start to dehumanize the other guys, what's now to stop the other group from saying it about you?
Right, I want to dissect this comment. I want to dissect this comment. Right now, Ubermensch. I prefer to stay with people like me. So most people like to stay around people they identify with. It's important to be around people you can communicate effectively with, people who share the same customs and values as you. That's all part of your identity, and you need to be able to socialize with people and have a sense of a social identity as well. Without that, you can become disconnected and you become lost. So you do need to be with people like you, for people who eat the same food, people who have the same routines, people who speak the same language. You need to be in a familiar environment. You don't want to be a fish out of water. But when you make a broad sweeping statement like that, I prefer to stay with people like me. Define like me, because you could be a sports fan. Now, you might want to go and be a spectator and mix with the other spectators. They're people like you. They're into the same thing as you. They might not be from the same ethnic background as you or cultural background as you. You might go to the Olympics. Yeah, you might want to go to the Olympics, and then you've got this Olympic spirit, which is just all about celebrating Olympians and the sport itself. And then you will be with people like you who aren't necessarily like you. So to say I prefer to stay with people like me, that's a situational statement. In certain situations that may be different, you will be with people like you in that environment, and you will associate with them, you will speak to them, you will have things in common with them, you might even form bonds with them and stay in contact with them in that specific moment in time, in that environment. So they're people like you. But to say people like me, nobody's like you. You're like you. You're you. Everybody's different. Everybody has different attributes and personality traits. So it's such a vague statement, you know.
Yeah, it's a cliche what he's pulled out. He says he prefers people who are normal. You know, you call yourself normal, but it wouldn't take me more than a couple of minutes to find a bunch of other people in the chat after we've examined and explored some of your characteristics who will call you not normal. Some of
Well,
your
define abnormal. If you're normal and you're different to me, that means you've just othered me. So you are the unmarked identity and I'm the marked identity now. So Ubermensch, tell me how I am abnormal, because you're the normal person here and you are a unique individual. So myself, Shining Light, and everybody else in this chat, compared to you, you've just labeled us as not being like you. So we're not normal. So please define what abnormal means.
And I guarantee when as soon as Ubermensch is in the group that he considers himself to belong with, as soon as they've changed their mind about something, you'll change your mind about what's normal. As soon as they've said, well, this is normal.
Yeah. Or they'll say,
you'll say, oh, okay. The comment.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. The point is, what you can do to other people can do to you, in that you describe them as not as being abnormal or bad. And good and bad is not defined by ethnicity or nationality. Just as strength, intelligence, and genetic perfection is not defined by a nation or someone's DNA structure. As I said, any human biologist will tell you the most superior human being is sourced from the most diverse pool of genetic material, which is why
superiority is a myth, because the people who claim to be superior also claim to be inferior, or they wouldn't fear or other the others. You know, it comes from a feeling of inferiority. So you feel so inferior, you have to try and establish dominance over another group of people. But let's look at this. I'm inferior to everyone I've met. I've met people who are more intelligent than me. I've met people in training who could wipe the floor with me easily. There are still people I fear. people who come down to my level to help me learn. In every respect of my life, in construction, there are men who know more than me. They're more experienced than me. They know stuff that I don't know and that I've yet to learn. I am inferior in every respect. I'm superior to some people in some fields, only because I've spent more time studying and applying myself and practicing and acquiring skills. But does that mean you're superior? Is the word superior the wrong word to use? Because if I've spent more time and energy learning something or perfecting something, and someone has only just started out, does that make me superior to them in that respect? Or does it just mean that, when they've done as much research and practical as I have, they might supersede the level I'm at now? So they could potentially be superior to me by the time they get to my level. It's such a vague concept, superiority. I mean, are we talking about individual people, or are we talking about a group of people being superior to another group of people because there's more of them, or because they've been around longer, or what defines this concept, this term? When you break it down, it sort of becomes nonsensical.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's an ancient idea. It's an ancient religious idealistic concept that's well outdated. And who's talked? He's brought up that he's been listening to too much too much politics and social media. This guy who mentioned diversity. We're talking about men here. Talking about the human race. What way we're
just trying to derail the conversation.
You wanna add AMG? AMG's in the chat. We can add him if you like it. But as I said, these are just guys that are trying to self-promote their own privilege. They feel that somehow their category of human being is superior and they deserve privilege, which is ridiculous. What happened to merit? As Trump said, people should be rewarded based on their merit and attributes and their work, not because they belong to some nation or ethnicity. What happened to that? Anyway, like I said, it's an ancient, ridiculous belief. And
yeah, but that was the whole point of bringing it up. The fact that we've been through all this before, and then you get people like this Ubermensch coming in, trying to bring up those old deflections and those old distractions to take the conversation away from men. We've seen all
stagnation.
That before.
Yeah,
it is, that's the point of it.
You're keeping men back. You're keeping yourself back because you're just not going to get it. I think you mentioned it, Laz, in your past video. Society's not going to bend to your silly notion of you being a superior human being just because you was born to a certain genetic mother and father, or you was born with a certain in a certain country, so you hold a certain passport or citizenship. Society and the world, it's nothing to do with globalization, nothing to do with promotion of diversity. It's just that's pragmatism. That's just the facts of life.
Yeah.
Just because you say you're genetically superior doesn't mean you're going to be smarter or stronger or earn more or have better characteristics and human traits than everybody else. And society is just not going to change like that. I know occasionally you'll garner, which I think a lot of the races try to do. They garner popularity using this rhetoric, but sooner or later you're going to find, as it happens with all these racist, ethnocentric ideals, you're going to find that society just doesn't work like that. You're going to find people that are not from your nationality or ethnicity that are going to be smarter, better, more able than you, more capable than you, more deserving and more worthy success than you. It's nothing to do with your ethnicity or your nationality. You know, this is stagnation. This is something that I wanted to point out. This is keeping you in a place where you're not able to work on solutions that will improve yourself and improve your situation. You know, you have to work on being better, more skilled, to be more adaptive to your environment. And being a racist knob is not adapting to your environment. It's keeping you back, in fact.
Well, the solution there is to just view yourself as an individual with a certain set of skills and limitations, and that's what you've got to work with. So, I mean, it's that simple. You've got biological limitations, you've got academic limitations, you've got psychological limitations, spiritual limitations, emotional limitations. What are you able to tolerate? It's an individual thing. People have to start looking at themselves as a fingerprint. And if you look at the human brain, there's a reason why they haven't mapped the human brain yet, because it's, there's so many neurons in it. But to map the human brain is to map the equivalent of a fingerprint. Our brain is so unique. Everybody has a completely different brain. It's as unique as a fingerprint. So this is what you're working with. You're working with a unique individual with certain strengths, weaknesses, limitations. You've got to know yourself. It's no good comparing yourself to people who are like you or people who you think are like you, because, again, to define people who are like you, in what respect? In what respect are they like you? Same color hair? Same interests?
You'll excuse me for laughing because, as you said, we've all been through it, and good luck getting a job in a big organization or even trying to get ahead in whatever nation you're because society's just not like that. Society moved on.
It's unrealistic.
But the Nazi Party was supposed.
But that was another thing we started speaking about was like truth in research and how it compares to real life. I mean, the term is ecological validity. That's a bit of a mouthful, but basically, if what's being said can't be compared realistically to real life, then, I mean, it's only as good as that situation. It's a bit like an experiment on mice where you put them in a box and you have artificial light and they have to push a lever. And if they do it so many times, it's like, oh, they can learn, or they understand what a reward is or how to get a peanut from pushing a lever, all this sort of stuff. Great. You can get data from that. You can get some kind of information from that. But mice don't live in metal boxes. If you observe them in their natural environment, that is more realistic. That is natural behavior. So when we get people out here using straw man arguments and making these vague, broad sweeping statements, normal, people like me, all of this, okay, but that's not real life. That's just not real life, because even within a community, there's such a diversity of people. We have our own stereotypes. Everyone gets a nickname because it matches their certain personality traits. Things you get like the village idiot and stuff like this. And there's one in every town, and you get these repetitious carbon copies of people, but within one group, they're not all exactly the same.
I mean, if you work for Google, imagine having values like that and working for a big company. You'd get sacked. You get sacked if you posted something like that for posted something on X. I'm all for free speech, but I'm just saying this is, we're trying to be pragmatic here. We're trying to be realistic. We're trying to be what's that word? What's that term you came up with? we're trying to be ecologically valid here.
Yeah.
And
Well, the thing is as
I'll,
well, how can you form a solution based on untruths? I mean, what are you trying to solve? If it's something you've made up in your own mind, then basically you're trying to solve fictitious problems, and you just run into stand still. It's pointless. The real world out there has things we need to deal with, and they are the things. See, this is the thing as well. To focus on problems that don't exist. It's bad enough to say that's a problem.
stagnation.
I've identified it. Yeah, but to hear someone talk about something and create a problem because they want to appeal to your emotions with logical fallacies and get you all G'd up so they can get lots of subs and create this group who are gonna fix the world, save the world from the others over there. That's just, it's not a problem.
And
it's only a problem.
It divided men as well. It created a big problem. In fact, if you remember, it split MGTOW right down the middle.
Yeah,
these idiots who decided to go back 6,000 years and say that their race was superior. It split MGTOW and the manosphere right down the middle. You created probably the biggest problem that appeared within the manosphere. So rather than
it took us back. It's like the term is low vibrational, but there are people who come in and they are very vocal, and I'm not just talking about the manosphere. I'm talking about people in general. They come in and they make all these. They need to be heard, and they want to keep repeating these points over and over, as if you tell a lie enough times, people start to believe it, and it just becomes something that's memed into existence. But you get these people, they come around, and by the time they finished, you think, how much fucking time did we waste listening to your bullshit? Now we have to go back and undo all the damage you've done before we can even begin to pick up where we left off, all those months or years ago. And it's just such a waste of time and effort. And the answer is to be rigorous, to go away and speak less and study more. Because if your words are quality, if they've been well researched, I mean, our early content wasn't just opinions. We would go away and we would look for answers because we needed answers. I mean, it was no good listening to bullshit, some talking head on YouTube and going, oh, wow, that makes sense. I think I'll roll with that. Because a lot of it was just people giving opinions and, venting. But when you actually looked into what they were saying, a lot of it was like, wait a minute, that's not quite right. I need some facts here. If I'm gonna identify a problem, I need some facts before I try and tackle something that may or may not exist. And even then, if it exists for someone else in their environment, if they're highlighting problems that affect them, that's good. You can have sympathy for them. You can't have empathy because you're not experiencing what they're experiencing. But if their problems aren't your problems, there's not really much point in wasting your time focusing on their problems when you've got your own problems to find solutions for. It's.
I think for these guys, it's a very cheap and dishonest way of self-promotion, and I think it points to a more fundamental problem within probably human nature, and I think when you base your life goals, when you think solutions is getting to your life goals, and your life goals are just making money and increasing your sexual attraction. And quite often you find these guys that are self-promoting through no great attribute other than their arbitrary nationality or ethnicity. a lot of these guys, they're based upon just trying to make money and just trying to get female validation. I mean, this is something we noticed, remember, throughout these 10 years, that a lot of these guys, they would eventually bring in female hosts and bring in female, what was that name? These guys that claim to be MGTOW and stuff like that. As soon as that woman was promoting white supremacy, they absolutely loved her. And as soon
Lauren
as
Southern. Lauren
yeah,
Southern
and
back in the day.
other women, well, as soon as other women, other white, as you put it, white Christian.
The problem is what they do then is they revert back to their social conditioning, and they think protect the white woman because that will preserve our race.
You remember that?
Oh yeah, and they were like, "Oh, save the white woman," and all of a sudden, everyone from the manosphere who picked up all these MGTOW talking points, all of a sudden, as soon as Lauren Southern started speaking, the focus went away from men and onto saving
women. The white women. Oh my god!
Save our women, and it's like
so-called MGTOW, you know.
Yeah, our women, the ones that fucked us over, the ones we've been fucking complaining about. Well, all of a sudden, you want to save them. What do you want to save them for? So you can marry them, so you can breed with them, because that's how you preserve your race, so your bloodline. So what you're saying is you want to go straight back to the plantation, and we hear it all the time, all the same old fucking boring voices, same old white nationalist. You know, they'll speak out of both sides of their mouths. They say, "Don't get married." You know, no more kids. Oh, well, listen, that it's gynocentric, blah, blah, blah. Oh, save the white woman. How? Why? How are you going to save them? What are you going to do? Are you going to lay down and die for them? Are you going to put your life on the line for them? You know, how are you going to save them? What are you going to save them from? And then what are you going to do once you've saved them? It's just bullshit. The whole thing about being a nationalist. I mean, I understand patriotism. They're two different things. Again, it's the connection to your own cultural roots, which is important to form your identity. But identifying too strongly with a nationality is a collectivist mindset that can easily be manipulated to make you a sacrificial man. And I don't want to fight for the greater good. I don't want to fucking protect anyone. I couldn't give two fucks.
Let's put it this way. Let's put it this way. We would fight and die for our home. We would fight and die for our rights. But I would not fight and die for the Tory Labour government, the rich billionaires that will start a fight and never put their own family, their own genetic ethnicity.
I wouldn't want to fight to preserve. But I wouldn't want to fight to preserve this way of life or their way of life, because that's ultimately what it is. Because you know they don't like our way of life. You know they always try and pull us back into line. But yeah, why should I fight to preserve a way of life that I don't agree with? A way of life that fucking shat on all of us. Why?
Yeah. These guys just haven't got it. You know, the reason why I said all that was because Skender. I won't try and pronounce his other second name, but he said a brilliant comment there, and that's why I said it. And you know, he says ethnocentrism is blind love, unjust judgment, and it is unjust. It's a form of celebrating mediocrity. It's a form of privilege, undeserved, and it is unjust to treat people just based upon how they look or what's on their passport.
Let's look at that troll that got booted off earlier, Ubermensch. Let's look at that statement. I prefer to be around people like me, because there are people like me who I've been around who turned out to be the worst fucking people I've ever met in my entire life. You know, people who've stolen from me, people who've tried to commit acts of violence, and I mean serious acts of violence, people who were in my immediate environment, from my background, my nationality, my ethnicity. You know, it's like I've been around plenty of people like me, who are complete assholes, and I wouldn't want to fucking be around them. And there are plenty of people who aren't like me, you know, to use that ridiculous term, who I would rather be around because they're decent people. And I just base that on their own individual attributes, and the fact that, you know, that they're just decent people to be around. I've got a lot in common with them, and, you know, they don't betray me, they don't stab me in the back. I mean, I don't understand why some people are so hung up on surrounding themselves with people who they deem to be exactly like them. Makes no sense.
That reminds me, and it was actually. Wait a second, is my microphone on? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
That reminds me of that film. What's it called? American History X or something. But that was based upon a true story of a neo-Nazi, an American neo-Nazi guy that went to prison, and he actually got helped and protected by the black Americans in the prison, and it was actually the neo-Nazis in prison that raped him, beat him, and kicked the shit out of him.
He wouldn't conform.
Yeah.
So, and we see this in the manosphere, that, you know, there are people in the manosphere, if you don't conform to what they believe to be normal, they will threaten you, they will try and extort money from you, they will ring your place of work, they will attack your family members. And this is within the manosphere. We always had disagreements in the past, but there's this tiny group of clowns who somehow are trying to make this all about what they consider to be normal. And looking at them, they are far from normal. But you know, if that's normal, then I don't want to be normal.
Yeah. He's fat,
you know,
fat, overweight, sick, unfit.
Well, the thing is as well, when you point out their flaws to try and bring them back down to earth, they immediately revert back to a victim mentality and say, "Oh, you're shaming us. You're using shaming language. Wow. You're a feminist. You know, you attack men." It's like, listen, you need to hear some truths. And if I'm telling you things that you don't like to hear, I'm not shaming you. Basically, you know, it's got to the point where these people are so confrontational. You need to take them down a peg or two, and ultimately, it's for their own good, because the way they carry on, it's not good for their health. It shortens their lifespan. So
it's stagnation. It detracts us away from the solutions. Good and evil, right and wrong is not determined by your genetics. It's not determined by your nationality. What I did want to say was it does take you away from the solutions, which is to improve yourself or to elevate yourself, to better your physical, intellectual, and I would argue your spiritual value and traits, which should improve your environment, your situation. You know, when we talk about solutions, we're trying to improve the human being, the individual, so that he can improve his circumstances and his situation, which of course for everybody is different, which is sometimes why perhaps we sound a little bit generic, because obviously everybody's in a different situation.
But you can learn from the mistakes of these people who focus too much on problems, and just not be like them. So if you do the opposite, if you say, okay, well, that obviously hasn't worked for you, your approach to life and your perceived understanding of the way the world is. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out and I'm going to mix with as many different people from as many different backgrounds as I possibly can. And you will open up your world to infinite amounts of knowledge, new networks, new contacts, things you could never have learned if you cloistered yourself within your own homogenous group. See, most of the things I learned, most of the interesting things I learned, I had to go and obviously training. I had to go and mix with Cantonese people, and a lot of the seniors in my class, They're not white. You know, my best friends are not white people. Some of them are. And the white people I mix with, again, they have certain things they learnt from our cultural heritage, hunting and stuff like that in the British woodlands, you know, using guns and stuff like that. When I go to the shooting range, I go with a friend of mine who hunts game, you know, but that's what I learned from him. But if I only spent time with him, I wouldn't have learnt the martial arts I learnt from my Chinese friends. You know, that you have to mix with so many different people to make yourself a more interesting and well-rounded person. So if you close yourself off to different networks and different groups of people, you're just going to limit your potential.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, in terms of religions as well, a lot of religious groups open up their places of worship to other groups, so they can compare ideas and also find similarities among their teachings.
If you look at every successful company, every successful organization, in fact, I made a video and I don't understand. I don't think everybody understood what the message I was trying to say from. And I titled it the Fall of Empires or something like that. And I talked about how the Roman Empire fell, and I talked about how all the superpowers rose. And I pointed out that the Roman Empire was at its strongest when it was at its most diverse. So we are talking about diversity now. Now, the America, who is who has been the world superpower for the past 100 years, something like that, they are the most diverse ethnic-wise and cultural-wise, you could argue. They are the most diverse nation in the world. You point me out a nation more diverse than America. Now, you could argue, diversity is damaging the US. You could argue that. But you can't argue the fact that during its most powerful, during its pinnacle, the US has been the most diverse. You can't argue that point. You could argue that diversity is detracting in areas of American society, but you can't argue the fact that, same with the UK as well, when Britain was at its highest, it brought in technology, it brought in cultural and all types of values and goods from all over the world. Being restricted to sticking with people of your own type, which is what that guy meant, not what we mean when we mean men of our own type, meaning men of value, men of wisdom. But when he means sticking with people of your own ethnicity, that is a self-defeating mindset. You're not going to open yourself to new knowledge, to new experiences. You're not going to learn from the vast ocean, the vast universe of knowledge that the world offers.
And we've always said this. People say that, men say that, but if a 10 out of 10 woman from a different race paid them any attention, you know full well they would forget any ideas about only wanting to be around their own kind of. We know that it's just such a. I don't understand it. I think it comes from suspicion and fear. I think it's learned. I think it may be. Well, I'm not sure if it's part of the education system, but it's definitely part of handed down through families. You know, the way they raise their kids and that, to be suspicious and it's based on personal experience. So it's a subjective thing. It's not something that is,
I think,
objective or universal.
and I would argue, I would press the point that it's based upon these people wanting to be privileged. That they want to have exceptional treatment in society without having to work or to self-embetterment or to strive for it. that is what I've observed. Without exception, all these people that we've been calling out, they are all quite materialistically based. And as we keep, I know we keep hacking on the point, but whenever any female of any ethnicity or nationality shows them any attention, they're all up for it, and we've seen it. We've seen it so many times, both online and in actual real life. I remember that BNP guy, that what's it, that Combat 18 guy, that BNP Combat 18 guy who was they made a TV they made a short TV program about him in the UK. That he was like the head of some big racist Combat 18 group, and his girlfriend was black, and they all took the piss out of him for it.
I remember the journalist or the interviewer approached him, didn't he, at the end of the documentary? And the guy was sitting on a park bench, and he said to him, would you mind talking about your ex-girlfriend? And the guy sort of looked at him as if to say, which one? And he said, the mixed race girl you shared a flat with, you lived with her. Oh, she wasn't my girlfriend. It was just a place to stay. And he said, no, she was definitely your girlfriend because we've spoken to her. And the guy got up and started walking away. And he said, no, I'm not comfortable talking about this anymore. It just undermined everything he'd said throughout the entire documentary. And then they found another one of them who was talking about the same sort of stuff. I only like being around people like me and blah, blah, blah. And the journalist walked into an Indian restaurant, and the guy was sitting there having a curry and having a chat with the Indian waiters. And he said, oh, you come here often, do you? And he said, well, these are my people. They live in my community. And it's like, come on, you can't have these double standards. It's just, I don't understand it. I think it comes from a place of ignorance. It comes from fear.
I mean, personally, I don't give these guys any attention. The only reason why I talk about them at all is because they keep popping up. I mean, back in the day, when they talk about the Black Exodus, some of them accused us of not addressing the point enough. But one of the reasons why I didn't address that point to beyond just making a couple of videos or a couple of podcasts about it is because these guys won't get anywhere. Trust me. In this society, in a world where cultural boundaries, language boundaries, are breaking down more and more due to the fact that the internet travel is becoming so much more easier. You can share ideas, you can share music, you can experience other people's societies, cultures, and ways of life in a way you couldn't do before. These boundaries are just breaking down more and more. A lot of people in the East are finding that they do like a lot of the Western stuff. A lot of people from the West are finding they like the stuff from the East. So these guys that are still in the my race superior mindset, believe me, they won't get anywhere. If we had when we find somebody like that in any of not just at my college, any university, they get special treatment by getting singled out. These guys, these people, men and women, they won't get anywhere in society. So
this conversation we're having now, I mean, this is just, I'm sure anyone younger than us would listen to this and say, are these old men so far behind? Haven't they caught up yet? I mean, it's just, you're never going to go back to a time when people lived in tribes and
all right, so let's move on.
War paint and grass skirts and stuff.
Let's move on. Let's talk about solutions. What do we mean? So we've identified that solutions are male based, and we've said that, and we've defined male based as not being or solutions that don't detract or don't target or against the other half of the men. So we're not dividing men in terms of ethnicity or by nationality. So solutions based, I would say that it's success. It's success based. So when we're talking about solutions, we're talking about paths and ways of success. Now, defining success, I think, is something that is seldom talked about and was seldom explored within the manosphere. So define, I think every man, the guys in the chat can describe what they think or define what their version of success is. But again, I would say that success is based upon whatever situation you are in. So some of us are sick, some of us are paraplegic, perhaps. Some of us are perhaps obese. Some of us are suffering from PTSD, and success for them are just moving that one stage up. So getting over their PTSD, or if you're obese, losing some weight. If you're ill, getting better. For others, perhaps you're in a dead-end job, and success can mean having some financial freedom, having a career of a source of income that can free up your time to pursue more metaphysical achievements. Yeah. So what do you think about that, Lazarus?
Well, in terms of solutions, it's difficult. It's difficult. I think people have to focus on their own strengths and weaknesses, and once you've identified what they are, you need to separate them. So the weaknesses are problems as well. So you've got a list of things you're good at, list of things you're not so good at. So your weaknesses are problems. Don't focus so much on those things. It's like I said, your plan should be, if something works, keep doing it. So those are the things you're good at. Those are the successful things, tried and tested. If something doesn't work, stop doing it, or reformulate that plan, rework that plan, and work out what parts of it, what pieces of it don't work, if you think that you're going to have some success with it. So really, you're looking at giving up on strategies that don't work. Not being afraid to accept defeat, but also learning from failures. So all right, you throw it away. It doesn't work. You're going to try something else, but why didn't it work? Okay, let's not do that again. And then the things that do work, why did it work? Okay, keep doing that. Can it be improved upon? Can you make it more successful, more frequent, more efficient? So it's about developing this mindset. It's more an attitude where you focus on things that work, things that are positive, things that achieve results, rather than the stagnation of focusing on things that never had a good outcome for you. This is the thing I don't understand about the manosphere. We get it. We get what doesn't work. But people tend to try and figure out these things that clearly don't work rather than accepting. And I think it's more about acceptance rather than accepting the fact that it doesn't work and saying, okay, well, throw it away then. There's no need to focus on it anymore. So, I mean, to develop a new attitude to life, to develop new strategies and actually throw away things that don't work. I mean, I've done it. I've said, right, get me out of this environment. If stuff can't come with me, it can stay there. This isn't working. This clearly isn't working. I need to remove myself from this situation. And that's when I looked at everything that didn't work or wasn't necessary, wasn't needed, would hinder me, slow me down, or even prevent me from moving on. And I said, it's got to go. It has to go. And if it doesn't go, I'm still here. I'm still connected, and to cut all these things off. And as you're cutting these things off, more things are trying to attach themselves to you, more problems, more things that stagnated and didn't work, more negative influences, more people trying to discourage you, the crabs in the barrel. Oh, that won't work. What are you doing that for? And you look at them and you think, well, how's your fucking life working out? Who are you to give me advice? And they want you to stay and fail with them. I think that's what a lot of it is about. People that want you to stay and fail rather than seeing you succeed, so they feel like, more of a failure. So, a lot of the things, I would even go so far as to say some of the things that worked, some of the things that improved my life had to go because they made me too comfortable. They kept me where I was. So a lot of those things, if I was worried about being comfortable, I would have stayed. And in the end, I thought, I'm going to have to accept a few hardships, learn a few harsh lessons, and part with a few things that I've become attached to in order to be able to formulate a completely new strategy and put it into action, which is what I'm doing now,
But you had the self-reflection, the self-criticism to do that. Now, I would argue most men do not have that, which brings me on to my point I was trying to make earlier about solutions. A lot of us, and you did touch upon it, a lot of us do not like or can see everything wrong with this situation we're in. And I know part of the problem is a lot of people, they can't define it. They can't articulate exactly what's wrong. They can only see some of the symptoms. And the way I put it is I categorize solutions in two parts. First is improving your situation, and most of the time, and I would say most of the time, improving your situation requires that you improve yourself. Either you need to learn something, or you need to improve part of your skill set or your mindset. And it is quite often just changing your frame of mind, and that falls under the category of improving yourself. And as I said, you have that self introspection, you have that self criticism, that this comfort, the comfort of staying in a flat, the comfort of having just getting by, living paycheck to paycheck. You might not want to risk losing that, having heating, having running water, having your everyday comforts, not being able to see that perhaps that's keeping you back to actually changing your situation. I would say most men don't have that introspection. I would say most men need to start looking within themselves before they start understanding how to address the situation that they're trying to change. So
yeah. Well, I found what I found was, if you don't embrace change or evolve, it will happen, whether you like it or not. There's the thing Joseph Campbell talks about, the hero's journey. And people say, oh, I don't believe in the hero's journey because, you don't have to answer the call. You get the call and you either accept it or you don't. And it takes you on a journey, and you win new knowledge and whatever, and you bring it back. And that's the whole hero's journey thing. But they say, well, what if I don't accept the call? And the problem with that is sometimes you don't get a choice. Sometimes it's forced upon you, and you have to adapt. You've got no choice. Your rent could double. Inflation could be so much so that you can't afford to live where you are. And sometimes the decision gets made for you. And the decision was made for me many, many times, and I didn't answer the call. I wanted to, but there were things holding me back. And in the end, I just sort of said, just fucking go. And I don't mean everyone has to go and, pack their bags and leave, but just do what you've been planning to do, even if you're not fully prepared, because you'll never be fully prepared unless you've experienced it before. Even if you speak to other people, they would have faced challenges that are different to the ones you're going to face. But the only way sometimes to completely change your situation is to put yourself in a different one, sink or swim, and learn from the challenges and speak to people, make new connections. That's what I do. I'm an introvert. I don't like socializing, but the people around me are also introverts. And one thing we have to do is communicate. And that's one thing I'm learning to do, is communicate with people, because every time I speak to someone, I get a piece of information. And that information is something I can use, and it makes me more capable. Whereas before I was like, okay, I think I know what I'm doing, but clearly I didn't. And I made a lot of mistakes. I've got to a point now where I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable, got through the winter, got money, warm, got shelter, my dog's fine. Everything that needs to be looked after is being looked after. But I made a few mistakes. Yeah. And as a result of that, it's made me more capable. I've got new skills. I've made new connections. There are people I can call on now who've got the information I need. It's just that it's making that leap of faith from a situation that's become too comfortable. And I think that's what they do. They make us comfortable, and you've got your couch and you've got your TV and you've got your food being delivered to your door, and people say, oh, I would love to do that, I would love to do this, but you've got.
I think that is quite a bad characteristic or personality trait to have, that you're closed in to other experiences. You're quite blinkered. You're not open to other people's ideas or perhaps other ways of life. As you say, you don't have to take it on. You don't have to do what everybody else is doing. But if you're in that state of mind where you don't really want to listen to other opinions, or you don't really want to see what it's like on the other side, and I do understand it, as V for Vendetta says, there's a certain comfort to monotony. There's a certain comfort to predictable having a predictable day-to-day life.
Certainty. I spoke to a friend of mine once, and she travels the world. That's all she does. And I remember one of the first things I said to her, I said, what do you think about certainty? Meaning like routine and stability and all that. And she said, oh, I hate it. And I was like, what? And then when I thought about it, I thought, I get it. You wouldn't be able to do what you do if you were restricted by a routine. So certainty would mean that you wouldn't be able to just pack your rucksack and disappear off to wherever you wanted to go in the world. So some people understand that security, comfort, and certainty keep you tied to a place. You put down roots. So it's that
predictability. Maybe it's meant to be like this. Maybe our governments are full of arseholes because we've become nations of arseholes. Maybe the people that have got this closed mindset, their personality, their frame of mind is that way because they're just meant to be stuck in the mud. They're supposed to be stagnated and not rise to excel or exceed their current status. So,
do you know what it is? I think opportunities arise, but you can also make opportunities for yourself. Now, a lot of these people who claim they wouldn't want to be taken out of their immediate environment or their immediate familiar surroundings, You mean to tell me if they were presented with an opportunity, if someone said to them, here's an opportunity to go and move to another country, here's some accommodation, here's the flights, do you want to have this experience? You mean to tell me there are people out there who say, nope, no thanks, I don't want to go there, not interested.
I think there are. I think there are people like that. I know.
Yeah,
I know it.
I'm sure there are. I know there are. But if someone said to me, "Oh, here's a house out here," it's like that. What was that island you said where the government was saying, "Here's £50,000. We just want people to go out there and build a community because it's uninhabited. You get 50 grand and you can have a plot of land and build what you want and take your skills there and see if you can, form a functioning community." I mean, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? I mean, especially as a MGTOW, especially as someone who claims to be going their own way, if you were given the chance to unplug from this matrix and go somewhere else, brand new start, nobody knows you, you're given a certain degree of security. You mean to tell me there are men who claim to be MGTOW who would say, no, I want to stay here. I want to stay here and watch Sandman every day and complain about women. Really?
Oh, no.
So that's their solution. They haven't got one.
So some guys are up for it. Some guys like being dependent on the government. I had this argument actually yonks ago. In fact, before my channel became Shining Light, my Shining Light channel was actually started. Before that, I had another name. I started in 2006, and I used to do the atheist-theist debate. And I had this argument with a guy. I was saying some people actually like being slaves. Some people would choose the monotony, the repetitive, the certainty of routine of being a slave, living on some rich guy's plot of land and being paid tuppence, just to be subservient to somebody else, because they know that they're always going to be fed. They'll always have a roof over the head. Oh, wow, that reminds me of that Charlie Chaplin film. Did you see that Charlie Chaplin film when during the Great Depression, he got put in prison and he was fed. Obviously, he was put in a cell every night, so he was dry. And when it came time for it to be released, he actually didn't want to get released. So, yes, some people like it. Some men like slavery. Some men like the comfort of knowing that they'll always be fed. They'll be somebody's slave or somebody's pet.
But does that come with a degree of regret? When you get to the end of your life, you go, "Oh shit, there's a big world out there," and I've got friends who stayed in the same town, and they've actually got mortgages and moved into these houses with their partners or whatever, and it's a mile away from where they were born. And the reason why they chose to live so close to where they were born or where they grew up or whatever is so they can go to their local pub. So they can keep the same pub. And I just look and I think there are plenty of pubs about. If it's all about the pub, it's just
I know grown men and women with 3, 4, 5, 6 kids, married, that are living with their mum and dad in a big house, who are also living with their mum and dad. They have not moved out of their house for 3 generations. So it personally, and I think a lot of guys will agree, it's soul destroying. And I see these people, they're very restricted. They're financially successful, you could say. They're socially successful, meaning, they've got their wife, they've got their family together, they've got their social circles. They've got a steady source of income. They're less relying on the government. You could say these people are successful, and now we're really getting into it, aren't we? Into the deep stuff. I think it's soul destroying.
Look at this comment. All-seeing Otto. I like certainty and routine. If someone's got to a point where they have got a comfortable life, and they can still accumulate savings, it's not as if one government decision or one bit of bad luck can completely destroy your world. You know, you can still make changes. They don't have to be permanent ones, but you can do things. You can broaden your horizons to increase your skill sets, or just to relieve the boredom of a routine. Now, routine can become quite monotonous, and in the end, it's a bit like Colin Wilson or Gurdjieff when they talk about the robot living your life. If you're never challenged by anything, if you're never faced with problems you've never had to deal with, you end up having this autopilot. It's a bit like, I'll compare it to something they call highway hypnosis in psychology, right? Highway hypnosis is when you get in your car and you've got to go and get a pint of milk because all of a sudden you've run out of milk for your tea. So you go, I get in the car, I'll go and get a pint of milk and I'll be back in 10 minutes. And the next thing you know, you're on the motorway and you think, what the fuck am I doing on the motorway? And you're driving to work. And it's because you do that journey every single day. And it's not you driving, it's the robot. It's the autopilot. It's the highway hypnosis. And it's the same in life. You can end up not living your life. You can end up having this autopilot, this robot, living your life for you because nothing's a challenge. Nothing is unfamiliar. Everything's the same. And it's just like Groundhog Day. And sooner or later, you have to say to yourself, fuck, I need a change, or I want something stimulating. I want to go to a fucking a festival or a concert, or I want to go to the theater, or I want to, you know, even normies have holidays, you know, twice a year or whatever, just to break the monotony of the routine. So I do get it. I like certainty and routine to a point, but not for my entire life.
I was thinking the older you get, the more you tend to, or the tendency increases for you to have monotony, to have a set routine. Certainly for the younger people with a bit more energy, they're not going to stand just doing the same thing, and they're not going to. You know, I do have a certain respect with these people that are able to live with their parents and their grandparents their entire life, because you do have to have a high degree of tolerance with other people, because living with somebody else, anyone else, is you need good social skills anyway. You need to be quite passive, quite neighborly. But to live with your parents for, you know, until you're 60, 70 years, I think that takes qualities I'm not aware of. But I was thinking about
that's a life lived in regret. There was a documentary I saw about a woman who the place where she grew up had been developed. It had been sort of gentrified, you know, like gentrification, where they move in, and you know, they like the raw,
all engineered,
the rawness of the area, and they move in, and the next thing you know, it's all coffee shops and art galleries, and they've destroyed the thing that initially attracted them to the place. But there was this woman in a little house that had been gentrified, and she refused to sell, and they couldn't get her out. And at the end of it, you know, she was dying and whatever, and she was going to die in the house. And they said, so are you happy you stayed in your house? And she went, no. She said, I never got married. I never traveled. I never did anything. And she was just racked with regret because she stayed there. She dug her heels in and stayed there, and she was defiant and fought for what she thought was important. And at the end of the day, it held her back. And it wasn't until she was like nearly dead that she realized she'd missed out on all the things she ever wanted to do, but it was too late. She was too old. And that's what I mean about age. You can, if you don't do things by a certain age, you start getting this yearning. Oh shit, am I going to be too old to do it? I better fucking do it now. Otherwise I might not be able to walk, or I might get sick.
But as you say, when you get older, your ability to do more, to do more things, to do more activities restricted. You know, you're not able to walk as far. You become arthritic. You become a little bit senile and forgetful. So the older you get, the more dependent you are on routine. And I was just thinking about people that get put in old folks' homes. We're
not there yet. Oh God.
But it's something to think about. Something to think about.
Yeah.
Would you be, when you can't really do things for you. I mean, you will get to a point. Either you die early, or you will get to a point where you're not even able to go to the shops to buy food anymore. Walking down the street is a task in itself. I mean, you see guys and old women, they will take a 50-meter walk down the road and they'll walk back again, and that's their days or even weeks exercise. And they're considered the lucky ones, the ones that are in old folks' homes that actually have to ask permission to walk around the garden. Can you be happy like that? I'm trying to recollect having any conversations with people in old folks' homes, whether they were happy or not.
I think it depends on people who have a subjective well-being. So subjective well-being is you're happy with your lot, and it's a positive psychology thing. So someone who's got a mediocre position in their company and a half decent house, and the wife's all right, but he's the happiest man in the world. He's got good subjective well-being. So that's the sort of person in the old person's home who will say, "Oh, I can't wait to have fucking semolina. Oh, it's great," because they put a blob of jam on it, and you're like, "Fucking hell, this dude's getting excited over a fucking bowl of semolina." And some people are just happy with things, and there'll be others who've got everything you could wish for, and they're a miserable old sod. And that's their own degree of subjective well-being. And we all have a baseline, and the way they describe it is your baseline level of happiness is constant. It can fluctuate. So if a miserable bastard wins the lottery, all of a sudden he's not a miserable bastard, but he will default back to his baseline level of being a miserable bastard after about a year of being a multimillionaire, because the novelty's worn off.
Right.
And it's the same for someone who loses their legs in the war or whatever. They were always a happy bloke, happy-go-lucky, really, life and soul of the party. Next thing you know, they suffer this incomprehensible event, and it destroys them. But their spirit comes back, and they eventually recover their baseline level of happiness or optimism, because that's who you are. That's your attitude to life. So your attitude to life, it can be shaken. But that's why I say I've always been solutions based. It's like when RBK promoted my channel, I remember him saying, it's all about the struggles and the blah blah blah, or all the bad things that happen. But there's an optimistic message there. There's hope. And I've always said to myself, that was what metanoia was all about. Whenever you reach rock bottom, whenever you think you're absolutely, running on empty, you've got nothing left, something comes from somewhere that says, if you don't fight back, it's over. You're fucked. So what are you going to do about it? And I always say to myself, well, I'm not dead yet, and that's what my solutions are based on. My solutions are based on not thinking about, oh, am I too old, or what if I get sick, what if I think, well, I'll have to deal with that. And this is the thing about worry and anxiety. Worry and anxiety is fear of what may happen in the future, and most of what you worry about, 80% of what you worry about, never actually happens. So you may as well say, I'll deal with these problems if and when they happen, but I'm certainly not going to limit my potential ability or my plans, or sort of say, oh no, I better not do that just in case this happens, because we haven't got a crystal ball.
It's a tough one, that one, brother, because if someone's content being being obese,
this is just me.
living on beans on toast and semolina. If someone's content on being on welfare for I don't know how 60 years on welfare, 60 years. Or being on minimum wage, because I don't think you can be on welfare for 60 years. I think the government will kick you out of the. You know, who are we to say, listen, get out there, you know, travel to Africa, go to China, Japan, Russia. You know, who are we to say, hey, you need to practice, you know, some meditation.
It goes back to opportunities, though, doesn't it? Because I think a lot of these people who end up on welfare, and you know, it's a socio-economic thing. So it was a lack of opportunities, because if they were offered those opportunities when they were younger, or if it was just part of their education system and part of their environment, you know, part of their family and support network, they obviously would have taken those opportunities. You know, who wants to be limited? And we always, that's why back early in the day in MGTOW, we focused on finance, because having more money or more disposable income, it gave you more choices. You created more opportunities. You know, you could travel more, or you could spend more time not working. You know, if you had certain amount of revenue streams, like passive income streams, stuff like that, you could focus on your hobbies more and be part of that system less. So creating choices and opportunities for yourself. And that was another thing I touched on in the video. If you look at social science, one of the comparing and contrasting concepts was choices and constraints. And it's what Bruno was saying about there are no solutions, only trade-offs. Within your solution, there will be things that work, things that were successful, but things that become problems that you didn't foresee. So it's not necessarily a complete solution to your previous situation. It's just a different situation with more problems to solve, and you know, some successes to celebrate. So there are choices, but with your choices, there are also constraints, things that aren't necessarily possible, doable, may not be financially viable, you might not be physically able, you might not be emotionally capable of dealing with certain environments or situations. So there are constraints that will limit what you're capable of. But yeah, that there are also choices that you need to make to determine how much of what you want to do is viable or feasible. So
perhaps maybe at least at least to say some of our message is not for all men, then, because if all men are if some men are content with slavery, some men are content, and not just men, but you know, society in general, if they're just content with, you know, there's this apathy, isn't there, when it comes to government and leadership. There's like, most people that are entitled to vote don't vote. It's well known. Normally, most people will stay at home, or they don't really care. They'll just vote the way that they're told to vote. I know definitely up in the north, most people they vote according to how their family or how their community tells them to vote. So really,
it's conditioning, isn't it? It's like in the manosphere, in the red pill community, for want of a better word, people talk about the awakening, being red pilled, all this sort of stuff, and their plan is to try and make traditionalism work. So they don't actually have a different plan. They just want to approach the same old plan in a different way and reframe it. And what we always said was, you know, you've been given the keys to your prison cell. How many men are prepared to actually leave? You know, get off the plantation. How many men are actually prepared to say, right, I'm going to do something nobody ever thought I would do. I'm going to do something, you know, people will look at me and say, he's mad. He's lost the plot, you know. Why isn't he like us? Why isn't he doing the same things as us? You know, you can do anything I mean, it's limitless. You can go anywhere, you can do anything. Yet, of all places, the manosphere, especially MGTOW, men supposed to be going their own way, they are absolutely hell-bent on trying to make this broken thing, this problem, work. And we said it before, it's the definition of insanity. Things that don't work, you need to stop doing them. Things that do work, you know.
Yeah, they're stagnant. They're stuck in the mud. They're not going anywhere, and they're happy about it. But you know, I would argue the fact that, you know, we are in a precarious situation. We do have government leaders that are very cold-hearted, callous. That you know, it's cliche to say they only care about their elites, their corporate friends. All-seeing Otto says the world is falling apart now. Travel isn't as good as it used to be. I would say that things are changing, and people and this stagnation is only allowing those that do make decisions, that are in power, to make the changes that they want, rather than the changes that would really help you know, people, you know, without trying to sound too political, housing, social services, transport, you know, things that would benefit the majority, the 99%. So but you see, the problem is, and what I wanted to address was, if there's this portion of men that enjoy the stagnation, that like it as it is, you know, they don't care who's in government, don't care, don't, you know, I'll vote anyone so long as I can carry on, you know, so long as I can eat what I ate yesterday, so long as I can stay in my flat. And there are a portion, you know, I know people personally like this as well. There are a portion of people that are happy. We'll just call them sheeple, being sheeple, being slaves, being serfs, people that are just happy just to get by. You know, they don't really care for any, as we try and promote spiritual, physical, self-improvement, intellectual enlightenment. They don't really care for that. You know, what right do we have, or what is the moral superiority we have to tell them, no, you should be a better man, you should want for a better government, a better society, you should want for a better circumstance for yourself, you should want to be a better person.
That's the trade-off. What came with our decision to disconnect was a lot of work. We had to deal with solitude. We had to learn to deal with solitude, and we had to learn to deal with a lot of the pressure from people, and we had to cut people off. That's why I say you might have to make sacrifices. You're going to have to leave not only possessions but people behind. And you're going to have to cut yourself off from people in order to be able to move on in the direction you want to go. Because sometimes it's people that keep us in one place, and or in a certain situation. And if we don't cut them off, things won't change. So yeah, it's, you know, it's
We
not
always
for
said,
everyone. It is a trade-off, and it's not for everyone. And there are people who are comfortable in their lives, and they're happy enough not to want to leave. You know, it's bearable, or you know, the happy wife, happy life types.
We always said that our message had a degree of altruism, didn't we? Because we're always talking on about living better lives, or securing yourself from risk, protecting yourself from false accusations, protecting yourself from fatherly alienation. You know, we always warned men against marriage, procreation, these kind of things. It was very much an altruistic message. Now, the problem was with that was, I'm reminded, or I'm you know, the comparison with the outreach programs comes to mind. So there are organizations, charities, quite often, and I think it's worth pointing out, quite often religious and Christian charities that will go around snowy, cold nights, look for homeless people, and try and bring them into shelters if there's any room. You know, good for them. I worked with them before. I think they're really good, fantastic organizations. But for example, when a policeman says, or when not so much the doctors and the nurses as much, when they say, okay, we're going to take you in for your own good, we're going to arrest you, put you in a cell for your own protection. That's only a little bit or one step away from a homeless charity saying, "Oh, we need to bring you in for to a shelter for your own good." Now, I'm not saying that they all do that, but I'm just giving the example of saying we're doing this, or we're telling you this for your own good, so you can lead a better life, so you can be away from harm. So there is that element. I think there is that element within within altruism, that when you try and help somebody, they see it as oppressive. They see it as, well, you're taking me away from my comfort zone. You could argue, well, this is a bad mind frame you've got, brother. You know, this is a stagnant frame of mind. This is a stagnant attitude that eventually is going to cause you spiritual harm, physical harm. You're intellectually stagnant, and eventually something inside is going to snap. You could argue that, but then obviously you don't have the moral standpoint anymore to say, no, you should want a better life. You know, you should want a better government. You know, you should want a better society. You know, why not open yourself up to better experiences? Do you see? So
yeah, a lot of people though, they're just, they don't have the motivation to want to change. I think it was Law. You know, he said you can't change the world; you can only change yourself. And it's, would you want to change the world? Like we said earlier, nobody's going to bend to our will. Now, just because we put up a protest and we say, well, we don't want the world to be like this, the rest of the world's going to go, well, who the fuck are you? You know, why the fuck should we care what you think? You know, and so then the solution is to change yourself, to look inwards, to work on yourself, to do things that, you know, nobody else, you know, is interested in. So then you get to be alone. You get to develop yourself. You get to grow. So, I mean, I think the way of life we've chosen means sometimes we're forced to focus solely on ourselves and shut the world outside out. And, you know, a lot of the things I do alone, because nobody's interested in what I'm doing. You know, it's like where I am now. I've been here, God, how long?
just give me a sec. Just give me a minute.
Yeah, I've been where I am now almost a year, and nobody comes to visit. Nobody's interested. I'm interested, you know, and that's fine by me because I like being alone. I like it when it's just me and my dog. But yeah, the life I've chosen is not for everyone, and the only people who I can relate to now are the people I've met who've also chosen this life, complete strangers. So that's the thing. When you change your environment, when you choose a solution that takes you completely out of your environment, you're going to have to make new connections. You're going to have to network with new people. And one thing I did to prepare for what I'm doing now, living on this boat, was actually go to boat shows and try and understand the way of life and look at new tech, look at things people used, the cost of things, you know, how people dealt with stuff like having power off grid and water purification. All of these things, you know, were things I'd never researched before, didn't have a clue, and I couldn't rely on anyone from my past life to help me because they didn't, they didn't have an interest in anything like that. But that's another reason why I just had to leave that place, because the things I wanted to do were so foreign and far removed from people who were like me. And it got to the point where I didn't want to be around people who are like me. So I think if you stick with familiar people in a familiar environment, they ultimately hold you back. And when you move to a new environment with new people, and you start having different conversations with different people, people who aren't like you, people who live a different life, then you get to learn new stuff. You get to learn things you never would have learned if you hadn't have made that decision to move. So
right. First of all, those I think at least half of the audience know my stuff. I'm always talking about being better, improving your situation. I'm all about that. And something that I've observed, and like we said at the beginning, we've been doing this now for 12, coming on 13 years now. Something I've observed, and something that we did touch upon over these past 10 years, and something that I would say is part of the problem, and the reason why so many people are just content with mediocrity. Why so many people don't want to self-improve, don't want to go through all that work and research and travel and experiences and learning. I would say it's because there's a lack of role models. And I think it's one of the reasons why Trump is so popular, because all of a sudden there's a group of men in the mainly in the US, but other parts of the world that see this man that they can relate to, and they see he's rich, he's got a beautiful wife, he's popular, and why Andrew Tate he's back now. Why he's popular? Because we lack good role models. Men lack inspiration. Traditionally, it's been teachers, it's been our leaders, politicians, community leaders that in the past would inspire and learn and show men the way, or better ways, and sort of instill some ambition in them. And the reason why men lack ambition, and I see it. Most of you know I'm a college teacher. Well, normally I teach in college, though I'm not at the moment. I see this in a lot of the boys. The boys lack more motivation than the girls. It's something that we point out, but we haven't said specifically. Boys do much worse academically now, and this has been a recent change, than girls. Boys lack motivation because they lack the inspiration that's given to them by role models. Because we have such poor role models, we have such poor leaders, such bad prime ministers and people in government, that men are just not inspired. And I think that's really what is lacking, really, in the manosphere. I mean, when you want to talk about the problems,
I think it's the type of people who want to be a leader. Because as I've grown older, the type of men I dismissed growing up as being weak, as being uninspirational, as being a bit nerdy, now I look at those men and I think, who am I to judge that man over there based on his appearance or his demeanor or his posture or whatever? And if I actually go over, if I give these people time, they actually teach me more than I could learn anywhere else. As you get older, I think age with men, most men, they have so much to offer. The thing they say, when a man dies, a library is lost. So I think every man now, regardless of whether he's the type to be a leader or be a nerd or be an introvert or whatever, if you actually give them time, you learn so much. In fact, I'm drawn more to those types now, you know, those eccentric types, because they're interesting. They've led colourful lives. I mean, you can't get to half a century without having had life experiences. So you can't write off a man of that age. And I find it's the less vocal people who have got more to say if you take the time to speak to them.
Absolutely,
if you want to listen to the Andrew Tate types and the gobshites on YouTube who just fucking talk shit non-stop. I mean, if that's what you want to aspire to be like, but the people who say less tend to be the people who have more to say. But you have to ask them, and you have to spend time with them, and you have to observe them. And I think so much knowledge and wisdom is going to get lost by people who give too much attention to the big mouths, to the tryhards, especially on social media. Because they're the ones who tend to have a lot of opinions, strong opinions. But if you break it down, again, we're back to ecological validity. That's just their opinion based on their own assumptions and biases, you know, based on their own background. And they say it with such conviction as if everybody should be like them. And if they're not like them, then they're not worth knowing. And if you look at them and you actually see a very fragile person who needs validation, who needs admiration. And these other people who don't need validation or admiration, so much so that they stay in the shadows, they're the ones you want to go and speak to. They're the ones you want to look up to, you know.
But trying to motivate men to look up to these people, to take these people as role models, to absorb and to take on, to actually listen to these great voices. Thank you to Positive Mindset, because he's led me to my conclusion there. Something we said at the beginning, that the loss of the father is the loss of the male role model. Positive Mindset that he says that his role model was his own father. For most boys and men, their first look at a greater self is their father. If you lose that father figure, you've lost that role model. The modern teacher's not going to do that. I'm speaking from 2 years of teaching young boys, 16 to 18, and young men. For 2 years teacher training, passing that model of the father figure. And as you know, and I think it's the same in the US as well, but the UK, something like less than 10% of teachers are men. The male teacher has almost vanished. But losing the father, you've destroyed that part of society. Society is related, interrelated. When one part falls, the rest of it will fall shortly after. We have lost the male role model. We've lost the father. We've lost that part of society that would inspire the young men. So now
that's something I spoke to Warhorse about the other day. So much focus has been placed on marriage and divorce, on all this sort of stuff in the manosphere. All right, we touched on positive role models and fathers and that, but I don't think people realize just how much damage has been done to men in general by a complete lack of respect for fathers, for sons, not just for husbands, not just divorcing and all the crap that, you know, some of us have had to endure, you know, parental alienation or whatever. But it's the fact that fathers aren't respected. So much so that even when they do protect and provide, and they do it for years and whatever, it's expected of them, and it's like no good deed goes unpunished. So the kinder they are, the more ungrateful people are, and the less respect they have for men. You know, it's like the male role now has been ridiculed so much that even the decent men who try to live up to traditional male stereotypes have just been cast aside. Even being a good dad doesn't count for anything these days. It just doesn't count for anything.
It's demonized. In fact, if you want to see your kids, you're a paedophile. If you don't want to see your kids, then you're neglectful. That's how it is. I don't care what anyone says. This is how the family courts work. This is how gynocentrism work. Anything male, anything related to real masculinity is demonized, and any man that's been that's a father can tell you that. You basically have to play the house clown. You have to be you have to be a second mother if you want to stay in the modern Western family home.
Yeah,
And that's just how it is.
The family courts and all of that bullshit, all the Kafkas and whatever social services bullshit. In the past, I had it when I was fighting for custody. It's like, if I didn't bath my daughter and change her nappies and that, I would have been neglecting her. And when I did, they said, "Oh, why would you want to bath a little baby girl?"
Exactly.
That kind of accusation, and I was like, why wouldn't I bath my child? I need to keep her clean.
And that's a situation. That's just it doesn't matter if they say, "Oh yeah, well, we have to be careful." Don't give me that shit. That's just how it is. Society is like that. The courts are like that. The government organizations, like the child services, I don't know what they call it in the US, Kafkasa over here. That's how they see. That's how we see it. That's how they'll frame it. And really, a society that's stooped to that level, that's demonized men to the point of all men are rapists, all men are potential murderers, all men are potential child abusers, all men are potential wife beaters. Domestic violence is within all men. That society we live in.
But look at Positive Mindset's comment there. His dad was responsible for teaching him his work ethic, and having a good work ethic, because I got it from somewhere. I mean, I'll work like a fucking bitch, and I know if there's a hard day's work to do, then you need a strong back and a weak mind. We always said that back in the day. You fucking get your head down and your ass up, and you fucking work until it's done. And that work ethic was instilled by men back in the day, and it's stood us in good stead. So all this demonization of fathers and role models and men in general, the virtues and the attributes we've got now, and the decent character traits that have got us through life, they came from men. So what do they want to do? Do they want to stamp all of that out so men just end up having absolutely no influence over their kids? What are they trying to achieve with this?
I think that's what they've done. Men have absolutely no influence in society. I mean, I just pointed out the situation in education. Most schools don't have. Most primary schools definitely don't have any male teachers. They're just completely ruled out. Now, when society has stooped to this level, it's no wonder so many men in particular, no wonder so many men have just abandoned society. Okay, well, fuck it then. I'll have nothing to do with society, nothing to do with government. I'm going to go off grid. And it's no wonder that this trend, that this new direction for men has occurred. Obviously, that the idiots in the so-called think tanks and government think it's all to do with women moving away from men, meaning women not wanting to have anything to do with men. They can think what they want.
People say it's been socially engineered as well. It's like a Marxist communist agenda to undermine our way of life and all this and that. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like I say, the world is not going to bend to your will. So for whatever reason, or for whatever shadowy organization has engineered this into being, or manipulated the female mind so much so that they've used women to completely destroy our way of life. Whatever you want to believe, That's the problem. But continually focusing on that and trying to figure out why it happened. The fact of the matter is that it is like this now. And the solution for a lot of men has been to walk away. And they might not have wanted to, but the alternative is to stay and play that rigged game, try and beat the house at its own game. And it's not possible. So that in that respect, it's like we said earlier, that decision was made for us. A lot of us sort of said, well, I tried and it was not a good thing to do. It didn't work out well. So, if a strategy or a plan doesn't work, stop doing it. And that's exactly what we did. We stopped doing it and we said, right, what are the alternatives? And the alternatives turned out to be better than, the traditional ideas or the traditional plan for men. And now we're sort of saying, why the fuck would we go back when we've got all this? I can live on a boat. I can walk my dog every day. I can cook my own meals. I can do what the fuck I like. My cost of living is a fraction of what it used to be. Who's gonna sell traditionalism to me now? Who's going to tell me I have to protect and provide now?
Exactly.
I can do what the fuck I like.
So we go full circle now. So now those men that wanting to promote their own little race, their own little category of nationality, and those I would put them in the same group as those men that are happy with slavery, because they are the defending that role of being provider and protector of their race and their nation, because that's what they're doing, aren't they? They're saying
tribalism, isn't it? We always used to say that about tribalism. Tribalism is a collectivist mindset, and ultimately you become the sacrificial protector and provider for the tribe, because that's how it works. That's how it always worked. You were the hunter-gatherer who went out there and risked life and limb trying to bring back a mammoth's leg to the cave.
And you are protecting and defending a system that destroyed men in the first place. This was our point all along. You being pro-government, being pro-status quo, or being pro-tribe. This is my tribe. We have to protect it. We have to preserve our way of life. This was the problem in the first place. Everything they did was to destroy men, was to destroy the father, was to destroy masculinity. They redefined it. And now it's crumbling to the point now that women are beginning to realize it now. They're being, you know what? I don't like working. I don't like, I want to stay at home, have kids. This is what women are saying now. I don't want to go to work 9 to 5 anymore. I don't want a career. In fact, take away all my responsibility. I'll just stay at home. I won't tell the joke. It's quite. It's quite.
But the thing is,
offensive.
Who gives a fuck what women want? Who cares? Yeah. I don't even consider it anymore. You get people who've got this sort of, the Schadenfreude thing where you laugh at people's misfortune, and that people say, "Oh, look, women now," and it's almost like. We showed them, and it's like, I couldn't give a fuck if women want to get married now. If the men who say, oh, we've gone MGTOW, and because so many of us are MGTOW now, they want us back. Why do you give a fuck if women want you back or not? If you're a MGTOW, you've gone. You shouldn't even be watching this shit. You should just look and go, next. I've got better shit to do. And this is the focus on problems again, focused on how problems have played out and intensified and become entrenched and, amplified, and all these words, that just basically mean there's been this positive loop of the fallout from feminism and gynocentrism. But who gives a fuck? We're out. We left. We're gone. And to see this still being spoken about 25. How many years ago were the online forums before Man, Woman, Myth? When the AVFM stuff and all that early stuff. It's got to be almost 20 years ago, 20, 25 years ago, almost quarter of a century ago, the Red Pill awakening happened. And now people are still speaking about it as if it's some groundbreaking, you know. It's just, I couldn't give two fucks what women want or what the effect has been on women of third wave feminism. I couldn't give two shits what the effect of men walking away has had on women, because I'm done. I was done fucking years ago. So much so that it's just the point of necessary interactions with women, and I don't even actively avoid them anymore.
So
I used to. Now it's just like there's another person. Hello, good morning. You know, ask them a question, and that's it.
Perhaps we could define our message as being men in a declining society. I think very few people would argue that point, that society that society is not crumbling. I think a lot of people do realize, whatever field of life you're in, society is crumbling. Our nations, our countries are crumbling. Society is becoming more decrepit, and we're just men trying to do the best that we can, trying to live the best life we can, being the best men that we can, despite of all that's happened to us, despite of the crumbling society. And we're just trying to get the best out of it. Perhaps that's the definition of our message, of our conversations, perhaps. And for those that,
we just wanted a not a happy ending, but at the end of the day, we want the best possible outcome for ourselves. So whatever happens to society as a consequence of everything that's been happening, we've got this, to use that Ayn Rand phrase, we've got this rational self-interest now. We're accused of being selfish, but I mean, the world outside, it can do whatever it likes, as long as I can do what I want and continue on with my little plan. I don't care what people think. I don't care what other people are doing. I don't care about relationship dynamics between men and women. I don't care about declining divorce rates or birth rates. It's all sort of macro stuff that really just doesn't affect me directly. I'm sure in my environment, of course, I'm affected by the economy and the cost of living and all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, as long as I've got enough to do what I want to do, that's it. I just focus on that. I didn't even know Keir Starmer was Prime Minister. You remember what you said about Keir Starmer? And I was like, oh, really? How the fuck did he get in power? And I didn't even know, because
possibly even worse than Tony Blair. It's, the student has took Tony Blair, though. Anyway, if you're agreed that society, that your country, that your environment is decreasing, is becoming worse, then surely you cannot agree that you're satisfied with comfort, with monotony, because that's going to go. Whatever comfort, whatever monotony you're in, whatever regular routine you're in, surely you agree that that's going to end sometime. That's going to get worse. So we would say, well, why not prepare for that? Why not surround yourself or get ready for a time when it does get worse, when your comforts do start to dissipate? Why not create your own sustainable comforts? That's what we're saying. We're saying, why not?
There was a prepper element to the manosphere back in the day. There still is. Element is one of those. Vention was one who, it's such a vast amount of disposable income.
I think we all are. I think in particular, I think where we do best is where we prepare men mentally and physically. I mean, just get ready for change. Be prepared for disaster. Check the box in okay, I'm prepared if this happens. I'm ready when this happens. I'll know what to do when this happens. So rather than just shut yourself out and be comfortable in daily routine, okay, enjoy your daily routine, enjoy your next year, if that's how long you think you're going to be okay for, and then why not add on to your mental skills, your knowledge, your physical ability, the the cushion for when disaster might happen.
Yeah,
So
we always spoke about that, the safety nets.
Yeah.
Because one thing I realized was years ago, when my resources were at full stretch, didn't take much for something to become a big problem. So I anticipated that. And then if you become a lot fitter than a man of your age would normally be, if he had a sedentary lifestyle and a wife and kids and all that sort of stuff, not saying all married men are unfit, but it can eat up your time that could be better
happen,
spent.
yeah.
So if you're fitter than you would normally be, if you cared about yourself more than most men do by having regular medical checkups and that sort of stuff, if you have savings that can last a long time, if you are psychologically strong, if you've been tested, if you're emotionally strong, if you're spiritually strong, if you've got all of these things in abundance, if anyone drops a bomb on you, if there's a life crisis, a financial one, or an emotional one or whatever, it won't absolutely obliterate you. And you could take quite a few bombs being dropped on you, and you would still have resources. You would still have fuel in the tank. And that's the point. I think this life gave us that. The longer we spent living this life, the more reserves we built up and the more capable we became of withstanding adverse events.
You know where to go. You would know what to do. You'd be spiritually fortified to survive, to keep going on, rather than just coiling up into a ball and crying, crying and declaring self-defeat. I think that is where we excelled, because most people, most organizations just don't give a shit about men. Don't care. No hero, as we used to say, no hero is coming to save you. No miracle. Very, very unlikely any miracle is going to happen that's going to turn things around. You've got to do it yourself. And I think that's what we said all along. And how can any man argue with that?
Yeah, which is why you can't be part of a collective, because you need to be able to function as an independent man. You can't rely on a group. We've learned that in the past with the charlatans that came and went, and they just exploited the group. They took what they wanted and then they disappeared. And you think, well, fool me once. It's one of those things you fall for. And a manosphere, it still happens. We've tried to warn people, but people come in, brother this, brother that, start up some fund or collection. They take a couple of grand off of people and then they fuck off. Or it was just a big scam. So yeah, you've got to function as an individual, not rely on other people, and not try and be part of a group that leans on each other. I don't like codependency between men. Certainly, you need a support group, like a small circle of men, because we all falter every now and then. But I've always said it: if you're going to help another man, he's got to retain his dignity. So it has to be quiet. It has to be kept quiet. You can't do it conspicuously and say, "Oh, I've helped a man. Look at me. I'm fucking, I'm great." You can't do that because it takes away his pride. You have to do it in quiet, in private, and you have to help him. You help him just enough, and then say, you got yourself out of the shit, you did this, crack on, and yeah, nice one. You know, there's nothing more to be said. You don't need to try and claim some victory or claim some admiration from other men saying, oh, look at me, I saved someone's life, because it is demeaning for the other man to ask for help in the first place. Pick him up just enough so he can get on his way and learn to be self-sufficient, and then that's it. You've done enough.
Well, I think that's it for me anyway. That's it for me. It was I think a good point to end on. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think we sort of covered most things, didn't we? And it was a sort of off the cuff discussion. This is what we said. We always have these discussions, don't we? But we never record them. We've had more discussions offline than we've had online.
Well, I said years ago, I said YouTube is going to, this platform is going to vanish. It is not going to, you remember that time we said, okay, we'll go to Vimeo, we'll go to, we'll try other platforms. I can't remember the names now, but I think Rumble was just coming on. We said, well, we're going to have to jump off YouTube, but you know, if you're from our old team, you know, you're welcome to join in our private conversations. But I never intended to stay on YouTube. Man at a Time channel was only supposed to be that one video that I did, just to tell everyone I was okay, just to tell everyone what had happened to the Shining Light channel. But you know, respect to you, brother, for staying on and continuing to make content.
I think there's people keep mentioning the word philosophy, but obviously there is no philosophy if you're just going to keep, you know, regurgitating the same old crap people were talking about two decades ago. But I think there is a philosophy, and it requires research, and it requires a deeper understanding of the valuable points that were made, not just this drama shit, not just all this clickbait crap, because that keeps men locked in a perpetual cycle of bitterness and rage. That is the first stage of your awakening. You know, that is the first stage of it. Just the realization, yeah, it pisses you off, but after that, you have to evolve. You have to, otherwise it's just tragic to see men who haven't evolved in their thinking, in their content, you know, in almost, you know, some people have been around for 10 years and they're making the same old videos. And that's not a philosophy. That's not philosophy. It means the love of wisdom. And I don't think there's any wisdom in saying the same shit over and over again for 10 years.
Yeah. Well, thank you for everyone that commented. All seeing Otto, Akavi too. Positive mindset. Reconditioned man. Is he the guy that's in Uruguay? Yeah, it is. He's the guy from Uruguay. Yeah. Shout out to him, and big hello to all our old friends. I think you mentioned Warhorse and Element, but he said, someone said he's looking forward to the next. Yeah, Skender. That's unfamiliar, but welcome. I wouldn't have blocked Ubermensch. I'm actually glad he brought that up, because that just demonstrated. He just demonstrated really what some of the points and the reasons why.
I know who Ubermensch is, and it's not who they are pretending to be. It's a complete fucking nut job. I know exactly who it is because of the language they used, and they just wanted to derail the conversation. So,
but yeah, thanks you. But Skender, yeah, I don't think I'll be doing another live stream. I didn't really want to continue doing the man at a time video as well. Yeah, I think this one will be my last one, guys. So I'll certainly speak to everyone. If you want to speak to me in private, I'm all up for that. But yeah, my time as live streamer, I think it should have been over a long time ago. I don't have. By the way, I'm not encouraging the other men to give up. By the way, I really like your stuff, Lazarus, and I think you'd be letting down. What I think we had like 40 people at some time. I certainly don't get those numbers. I'm not saying I do this for the numbers, but I've got to be getting on with other stuff now. Not like I don't enjoy this this kind of conversations. I think it's really nice to get together with everybody. But yeah, but don't be looking towards what is the way you are, because Lazarus, God bless him. He's possibly the only man I would have come out and done a live cast with. The only human being, in fact, alive I would have done a podcast with. But yeah.
Well, that's why I asked you, because you have these opinions, that you have a way of elaborating on things, and I don't even pick up on what you've said during the conversation. It's only when I listen to it afterwards that I think, oh shit, was I even listening to what Shining was saying? Because he made a point there that I completely missed. So I always have to listen to these conversations at least 2 times afterwards for me to glean everything that was said. It's difficult, isn't it, when you're thinking of answers, and you know
the thing. It's just the nature of the things we talk about. They're so in depth. They're so grounded in our environment, in the atmosphere with which we live in, and they require very complex and in-depth answers that will stand the test of time. And I think the fact that we spend so much thought and so much time in preparation for these discussions, they certainly deserve listening to over and over again. The fact that I think our last conversation had like over 1,000 views, but only something like 20 or so people turned up. So the replay value is probably as good as it gets from anything on YouTube. But yeah, I have to get on with other stuff, guys. So I'm sorry if you don't see me again.
That's it. But he's officially retired, like Tyson Fury. He retired, guys. And then he came back.
Sorry, guys. But like I said, I wouldn't have come back and done a podcast with anyone else but you, brother.
Yeah, so, you're always appreciated.
I might pop in to say hi now and again. But yeah. Thank you, Laz, for setting this up. I having said what I just said, I am really glad I came. Just to catch up with everyone. But yeah, if you want to catch up with me, I think my email's on my account. If you want to speak to us in private, we did invite everyone, actually. I mean, you mentioned Warhorse, me and Element. We hung out for about, I think, 4 years on the Xbox. We invited SFM and MA to join us on WhatsApp. I think MA is still in our WhatsApp group.
He sent a message today. Yeah, he's busy. He's like all of us, living life. I'm suspicious of men who spend too much time on social media because you need to be out there. You need to be out there doing real world shit. It's good. Yeah, it's good to hear that men are too busy to do too much of this. But yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for me. Thanks again, everybody. I do have some stuff on my a Man at a Time channel. So if you do like what I said, like you said, maybe some of the stuff does go over people's head. But
it does. It's too advanced for a lot of people. It's too advanced for me because I have to go back and say, oh, fuck, how did I miss that?
I know. I do feel that sometimes. Some of the things I say is, and it's that mistake a lot of people make. They speak in the perspective that everybody understands what's gone before that, or everyone understands the context. But I think most of the men around here are like that anyway. A lot of the men are quite experienced. A lot of I know a lot of people in the chat, or at least some of them that I recognize, have been with us for years and years. So they'll know some of the concepts and the terms we talk about. We don't have to elaborate on them too much.
But, all right. Well, I'll put the link to your channel in the description as always. And then
peace, brothers.
Anyone who wants to contact Shining or speak to him, in his comments, then to do that. Okay, well, thanks to Shining for taking time out of his evening to be with us, and thanks to everyone in the comments. A lot of old faces there. I don't have time to reply to comments when we're speaking because I get distracted. But yeah, appreciate all of you showing up, and there'll be a live stream next week with Shaka. He was in the comments earlier, but hopefully he's busy. I'm busy, but it's scheduled, and hopefully we can make it happen. So roughly the same time next week, I'll speak to you all then. Until then, take care, everyone.